Welcome to the Rise to the Challenge podcast. Joining me today, he's the owner and CEO of Peak Luxury Travel. It's AJ Krow. How are you doing today, AJ?
I'm doing great. Alex, how are you?
I am doing good. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I'm excited to learn about your rise to the challenge. We'd like
Happy to be here.
Right at the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what were you involved in growing up?
Yeah, so I was born in Philadelphia, raised in Nashville, Tennessee. I moved there when I was 13 months old. Familiar story. Dad had a job opportunity there, moved the family there. Our whole family is from Philadelphia, so they took a big jump leaving and going to Nashville, Tennessee, which I will say in 1991, Nashville, Tennessee is not the same as it is now. It's definitely a lot bigger, a lot more mystique to it than Nashville. Back then, it was pretty much kind of like Beverly Hillbillies to all of our extended family that was in Philadelphia and up in the Northeast. So grew up there, awesome place to grow up, and I was into sports, football, basketball, growing up, and those were my hobbies, passions. One of three kids, was the youngest of three kids. So obviously growing up comes with all of those, two very athletic brothers. So it was a lot of, the typical three-boy kind of household. But yeah, we just always had a lot of fun and wound up going to Southern Methodist University in Dallas, SMU, as some people know better. And I graduated from SMU and was looking for job opportunities after that, and just met my now wife our senior year, and we both kind of just said, hey, we love Dallas, there's plenty of opportunities here, and we stayed and started working here after college, and we've been here ever since. And now all of both of our families live here in Dallas, so we're all about a mile away from each other. So we got my parents out here, and my wife's from Oklahoma. Her family came out. Her parents had always had a place here, but then they moved here full time too. So we're all one big happy family here.
So growing up with three brothers, was it more like a competitive feel? Like, were you guys trying to challenge each other to become better individuals?
It's interesting. A lot of people that I know that grew up with multiple siblings, usually multiple brothers, it was a lot of beating up on each other, beating up on the little ones. We didn't have that. It was funny. My mom was always very, very worried about what video games we were playing, and it was kind of at the height of everyone worried about violence in video games leading to violence in kids and stuff. And we had I think we maybe got in one fight collectively. And it was when we were older on the basketball court, and it was a one push, and that was pretty much it. So no, we were all very, very, very supportive of each other. We're all three athletes. We were, kind of excelled all in different sports, which kind of helped that out a little bit. But we were just, there was never that, worrying about, one worrying that the other one was outshining or anything like that. We were all 3 years apart, which kind of helped. So when my oldest brother was a senior, my middle brother was a freshman, and I was in middle school. So there was never that time where we were both, two of us were playing at once, which, we would have liked that. But no, it was always a very, very, very supportive environment. And, we always, even when my brothers left, they would come back to as many of my games as they could go to. And we just, like I said, there was never any of that animosity or anything. We just, we just all wanted to do the best that we possibly could.
Did you have someone that you kind of looked up to or inspired to be growing up?
My dad was an incredible example for us, and he continues to kind of echo in our, all three of us in the way that we, have approached our careers and our lives. He was, his dad passed away when he was 5 years old, and, wasn't a silver spoon kind of situation. Wasn't born on third base. He had to scratch and claw for everything that he had. And, he built up his business, a phenomenal career, went out on his own, had a situation turn out to, where he took a risk and it didn't work out. And he was left with, a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and had lost everything. And it in a very, very short amount of time. That was why we wound up moving to Nashville and built himself back up completely, which is, not something that's easy to do at 30, in your late 30s, early 40s, and was able to go on to have an incredibly successful career. So it's really, you don't need to find any other role models when you've got that in your home, and just that drive and determination, and not stopping until you achieve what you want. And then I got to say also too, my mom, who was just an incredibly supportive wife that allowed him to be able to do all of the things that he needed to do. And, it's not easy growing up, or not easy raising three boys as a woman, especially like we were. She always jokes that she used to be nice before raising us, but she was just an absolutely incredible mom. She was superwoman to us too. So obviously for different reasons, but both of them were just incredible role models for us.
Playing sports, what's something that you learned about yourself playing those sports?
I say to everybody, anytime this kind of thing comes up, there's nothing more important than getting your butt kicked growing up and losing and feeling what that's like, and knowing that, because out on the field or the court, it's one place in this world where you don't deserve, you don't get anything just because you showed up. You got to earn it every day. That was the biggest thing. And, I was 5'9", growing, I was not the biggest, fastest, or strongest. So it taught me to, first of all, you've got to go out and have confidence as soon as you step into the arena. And it carries over into the business too. But you got to be confident. You got to work hard, and you got to know, you have to know inside and out. You got to be smarter than everybody else, and think about things in a way that nobody else is going to think, to be able to get any sort of advantage. Because most people don't have an athletic advantage. Most people are like me, average size, average gifts athletically. So you just got to figure out how to be creative and how to grow and get an advantage on everybody else.
I think you kind of mentioned, I consider myself a wild card when it comes to sports. Like, you never know what's going to happen on the field. So I feel that you kind of have that psychological advantage in a way where they think, oh, he's not going to be that great. But then when I turn it around and show people that I am good at something, it's like, well, you picked me last or something. I regretted that decision. But
absolutely,
it's kind of like you find your inner gladiator in a way. How do you overcome obstacles when you get defeats? And what do you learn about yourself? What can you do better? And I think that's the greatest thing. Because some of these teams that go perfect records, it's like, okay, maybe did you get lucky or did you play well? But there's probably something that you could have done better. Like if you gave up a touchdown, okay, how do I stop that? But it's hard to know what those things are if you're not going through those failures and overcoming those obstacles.
Yeah. And and I think with everything, it's all about what's your perspective on it. Right. So how are you looking at it? So, I was always one of those that, hey, anything that we learn from a loss, we can learn from a win. Right. I was never, and, my dad was the same way. I was just always, my mom would always say, well, hey, at least you can learn something. I would say anything we learn from a loss, we could learn from a win. But the only reason I think that I was able to kind of have that mindset, the only way I think that mindset really works is if you, like you said, if you're looking at, okay, we won, great. Why did we win? Right? Where, if we won by, if we won by 2 touchdowns, how could we have won by 3? Right? Or why did we get into a couple of those situations where we didn't want to? And that's something that I think that's kind of life in general, right? Is, when good things happen or something kind of falls into your lap, instead of just, thinking, hey, everything's always going to work out, or, hey, I've just got it, right? I've got the touch. Why did it happen? Right? Why did we get that win? Why did that sale happen? Why did that, whatever it is, go so well? Yeah, it's all about perspective, but I think you're absolutely right, especially, if you're in that situation where you're not 6'4", 220 and are, an extremely gifted athlete. It's that perspective that meant you got to bring the mental edge there if you don't have the physical edge.
Definitely. Did you have any dream goals that you wanted to accomplish eventually in the future as you were growing up?
Yeah, I always wanted to own my own business, or run a company. And that was one thing, it's a lot of times it's, well, what did your parents do? Right? My dad was very successful running companies. So that was kind of the first thing that, really jumped out at me was, yeah, I want to run a company. That was kind of how I defined success. And, really growing up, I didn't really see myself as taking the entrepreneur route. So, I eventually kind of got there by necessity, but yeah, I was just the opportunity to lead a company, to run a company and a business and be able to lead people and create opportunities for people was just, that was always my goal that I had.
I think for me, entrepreneurship was never something that I thought I would be. Now, as I say it today, it's kind of like one of those best things that has happened to me because you kind of understand how to make sure you know how to do different tasks and be able to gain those skills. And at a young age, you kind of just, oh, I'm going to run $1 million business. Okay, well, how are you going to do that? You kind of start feeling it out as you go to college and learning the different skill sets from there. But it's kind of sounds like you wanted to follow in your dad's footsteps. He ran a successful company. You wanted to do that also.
Yeah. Yeah. You're exactly right. And, of course, growing up, very little time is spent kind of fleshing out that how. Is a lot of times spent on like, oh no, and it's never like, no, I just want to run like a nice, small to medium sized business that makes a good, comfortable living. It's always, now I want to run a $1 million business, or $1 billion business, whatever it is. Never much thought on the how, but yeah, you're right. I was always, always looked at my dad as that model and, wanted to follow in his footsteps. And it was also just something I really did love doing. It wasn't one of those situations where it was like, well, I've got to do this because I don't want my dad to be disappointed in me if I don't do this. It was never like that. It was, it was just, he was going to be supportive of whatever I did as long as I worked hard and it made sense. And, but yeah, I just always loved that. It was that opportunity to lead a team of people in a group and build and grow something.
So living in Nashville, what brought you to Dallas to go to school or university?
It was a weird story. I was a disillusioned high school junior and senior that thought, well, yeah, I know I'm 5'9" and average athletically, but maybe there's some school that'll see my, game tape and everything and want me. And so I applied to a bunch of schools that, I had good grades and had good test scores. Applied to a bunch of Ivy League schools that, looking back on it with the hindsight and a little more education, was just a pipe dream. So that didn't work out. And so I wound up with University of Tennessee and one other small school in Tennessee. Belmont is right in Nashville. And I didn't want to go to either of them because I always wanted to go away to school. I didn't want to stay where all of where it was going to be comfortable. So I was probably March of my senior year. Everyone's all ready to go and submitting their colleges for graduation gifts and for, graduation ceremonies and stuff. And I had no idea. I just knew I had two places I didn't really want to go to. And so my brother at the time was living in Dallas and working for a company out here. And he said, well, why don't you apply to SMU? It's a beautiful campus. It's a really, really good school. I had honestly never really even heard of it. And so I just started to do some research. I thought, all right, well, good business school. It looks like a really nice campus. My brother lives there, and he says the campus is beautiful. I eventually found out that he had never actually set foot on campus, and so I took a leap of faith on something that didn't actually turn out to be true. But nonetheless, he was right, and it is one of the most beautiful campuses in the country. But it just felt right. He was there. It was good. Enough, kind of feelings of home without being, just in a super comfortable situation. So, in March or April, I just emailed the admissions office and was like, hey, here's my resume. Here are my grades and scores. Would you let me apply? And sure enough, luckily they did, and wound up getting in a couple weeks later. So I got a late start, but yeah, that's how I wound up going to SMU. And obviously, since I met my wife there, it turned out to be the right decision. And just crazy how those kind of just chance hopes and prayers sometimes work out.
Comparing it to University of Tennessee and Belmont, is it as large as a D1 school, or is it kind of a smaller kind of local styles?
Yeah, so polar opposite from University of Tennessee. University of Tennessee is a huge state school, I don't know, probably 30, 40,000 students plus. Yeah, huge school, huge, 100,000 seat football stadium, Neyland Stadium. And SMU was about 60, about 6,000 undergrad, about 5,000 grad school, and small private university right in the middle of Dallas. So really, really unique. Belmont's even smaller. Belmont's an incredible program. It's become a lot more popular with both medicine and especially nursing and music as well. So yeah, really, really different program. SMU, a little bit more of kind of a an old school kind of good old boys networking kind of school. Definitely a lot different, and an interesting place, definitely.
What was the best thing that you learned about yourself going to that kind of school, like a smaller school, than what you
Yeah,
go to a larger school?
yeah, it was honestly just having to go out and fend for yourself. It's a really, it's something that, and my wife and I are on the same page, and she did the same thing. She left Tulsa to go to SMU. It's just something that's just always been super important to us is you have to leave to go to school because you have to experience, because again, most of us in, growing up, a lot of your friends that you wind up with or lifelong friends you met because you were sitting next to them in kindergarten or first grade, right? You don't actually have any reason to be friends with them or figure out how to make those relationships. So that was a huge thing, just being able to, knowing that, okay, I can go into a situation and I can figure things out, and, having to work and juggle work and school and everything was, it was an experience I hadn't had before because, it wasn't like I ever had to move to go to a new school or anything like that. So really valuable experience, but those two things were definitely the most valuable for me.
It's very interesting from going from high school, and from my experience, like you become friends with these people, but then it's like right when you graduate, it's like the real test happens. Are they actually your friends? And I found out that they weren't really my friends because since high school, I haven't talked to anyone since there.
Wow.
And it's kind of like, what was I doing wrong? But like I see photos of all of them all hanging out with stuff, but college is where you make the real friends, in my opinion. Like those are the people because you're living with each other and you're with them 24/7. And I am totally fine with being friends with people in college. Sometimes I wish the friends I had in high school were still there, but it's one of those things I didn't leave on bad terms with them. But like you said, you got to fend for yourself. Like a lot of people growing up, they had their parents handle their bills and pay for their car or get them up for school. When you're in college, you don't have that. It's like you're an individual, and I'm not going to call you up. I have done that before, getting on people's doors, but I don't regret. Like a lot of times in my friend group, I was like the dad of the group because I was her. Like I had that like, oh, I'm an adult already. But to me, I was fine with that. Like it didn't bother me at all.
Yeah, it's interesting. And that's how I feel like that's how it is for most people that I know. I had kind of a different experience. I'm still really, really close with, almost all of my friends from high school. I mean, very few have fallen off. And college, I had a really, really, really tight knit group of, 3 or 4 guys that I still talk to every single day. We've got a, text thread but I didn't do a fraternity, and I didn't do some of those things that kind of, build those larger groups in. But no, I was fortunate that I had a really, really real good school with really good friends that I've been able to keep in touch with pretty much every day, even now.
So what were you pursuing when you went to college? What was that degree?
I was looking for, the business kind of degree, business finance. Yeah, SMU's got a phenomenal business school, Cox School of Business, that I actually wound up not getting into. And I'm not, never, when it comes to college, I'm very honest and open about, how I did and my situation. I was not a good college student when it comes to, because especially, early on with a lot of the, the mandatory courses that you had to take. I unfortunately I had a bit of an issue, and I still do, of something that if I don't think this thing is necessarily relevant to me or important, I have a real hard time putting forth the effort for it that I should. And it's real tough with SMU was an expensive school, and it was really hard for me to kind of grapple with. I'm forced to take this elective arts class that I know is just a money maker for you guys, and you're just hammering everybody here, forcing us to take these schools. But so I wound up majoring in economics, which was actually wound up. It was something I was interested in. I think I was apparently the only high schooler that had a good economics professor and actually enjoyed economics. I got very lucky there. Nobody else that I know enjoyed it. So I got lucky there. So it was something that was, economics there was in the arts and sciences department, but we wound up with a couple phenomenal professors there. And by a couple, I mean literally like 2 or 3. The rest of them were very average. You can probably tell from me, I'm not a huge supporter of the institution of higher learning for the most part. But I had 2 or 3 really, really awesome ones that really drove that. I was able to build and develop that economic skill set that I think is crucially important for everybody. I wish it was we had better teachers or better way of delivering that to students. And I didn't honestly I didn't learn a whole lot in college that I was able to apply to business, as I'm sure most people are. I learned most of my most important skills through internships and things like that. But I wound up, luckily I wasn't one of those that was like, well, 2 years in, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch my major from business to, creative writing or something like that. So I knew what I wanted to do generally, and was able to, to wind up seeing that all the way through.
It's kind of the comparison between book smart and street smart in a way. A lot of times the schools want to teach you what's from the book, but when you get out into the real world, it has nothing to do with what's in the book. And like, I was the same way with you. I wanted to get out there, learn from the actual industry and gain the knowledge, not sit in a classroom and read from a textbook all day. And half the stuff that I learned in my major, I was a sports management major, I don't even use.
So was my brother.
We don't, accounting, I don't use. Business law, I don't use. I probably need to know those things eventually, but that's what Google's for nowadays. But I think science, I wasn't a big science guy. My dad was, and my family was big in math. So math for me, I will take those classes, but writing wasn't my thing. I didn't care about reading a book. I was like, give me a project to do. Give me an event to plan, and I'll do that perfectly. So college for me was a hit or miss. I enjoyed it because I made a lot of friends and I got a lot of experience in networking, which I still do today, but too expensive.
It was, and I always had that. And virtually no college is worth the money that it's being charged right now. I mean, it's an absolute travesty, and hopefully, maybe coronavirus is, this situation, one of the silver linings is it kind of course corrects the amount of that college tuition is. But no, I mean, it would really came down for me of I'm tired of paying money to do work that I know is not going to be important to me down the road. And, maybe I should have, used a lot of those courses and things like that. I wish I could go back and take now or learn now, because I'm just learning them on my own, right? I'm not paying thousands of dollars to be forced to do them. But I mean, a couple really, really, really great classes that I actually got a lot out of and still use to this day. But other than that, I'd much rather just do that kind of stuff on my own time.
Yeah. So as you got closer to graduation, where was your mindset at? Were you getting nervous? I don't know what's next for me, or did you already have a game plan ready to go after graduation?
No, I had a game plan kind of ready to go. Luckily, I had, I knew kind of what I wanted to do and kind of the industries that I wanted to do it in. Luckily, I wasn't, hoping and praying that I could, come up with something that I thought I might like doing. I had a couple industries that were kind of already foundational that I knew I would go into one of those two, which kind of helped narrow my focus, because looking back on it, just if you don't know any kind of industry you want to go in, or anybody at any companies, that's just, I mean, it's a nightmare of a situation that you just, up on LinkedIn, just searching and trying to apply for everything. Because inevitably you get the like, well, why did you want to apply to this company? And it's really hard to just say, I don't know, you showed up on LinkedIn. But yeah, so I knew I wanted to go into something in either, payroll services, which was the industry that my dad was in. So I had firsthand knowledge of that industry, and was something I liked. And also the food industry. My brother at the time was working in that business and was working with the company that I eventually started working with, that worked out really well. But yeah, it was at least because I was looking at it as I need to be in an industry that, does a couple things. One, I know it's going to be around, in 10 years. And two, that it's something that I actually, that I can stand by, right? That it's something I know that, its customers actually can use. So no, I mean, fortunately I was fairly certain what I wanted to do, was just figuring out how to get there.
So talk about that first company that you worked for. What was like the goal of that company, and what were you doing during that time?
Yeah, so it was it actually, with how my situation turned out, that I'm sure we'll get to. It was actually the only company that I worked for. It was out of school. It was a food distribution company. So it was owned by a large Fortune 100 food distributor, and it was kind of had a more smaller family-run feel. And it was a really, really great company to start out with. It checked the box of it's something that's going to be around. Food's not going anywhere, and it was an opportunity to come in in a good time for this company that was coming in with a new direction, and it needed some younger people coming in that really wanted to go out and attack and improve some of the systems that they had in place. So it was they just got a new leadership team in place, and it was a really good place to learn. It was something that I really didn't know anything about. Company largely specialized in fresh produce, so it's not something that growing up, like I didn't grow up on a farm. I didn't grow up with a family that were super into anything like that. So it was a really good learning experience, and it's also it was a good opportunity for me. And it's not that I really had this issue, but it's just something I looking back on it, could happen to a young kid coming out of college. It's kind of humbling to go into something that you don't know a fraction of the amount of that everybody else is that's there. So it was a good opportunity to come in and say my mindset, and to be able to tell people like, hey, look, I don't know anything about this. I'm going to come in, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to figure out if there's coming with fresh eyes and say, is there a better way to do this? So I came in just kind of entry level role of the pricing and revenue management, and boss just pretty much said, he gave me way too much responsibility for someone's just starting out in the business, but it wound up being really, really productive for me. So I was able to do a lot of things and kind of mold and shape the position into something that was different than what I was originally hired to do. So wound up holding a bunch of different jobs within that company in several different departments. That looking back on it was awesome. Again, to just be able to learn all facets of a business, like you talked about at the beginning, that you're forced to learn different parts of the business, because you can't really be a successful entrepreneur and can't be a successful business owner unless you do that, right? And understanding how one side impacts the other. So that was really, really impactful for me. And so I think I wound up in 7 years. I think I had wound up having 7 different positions, in various departments in the last few years, working my way up into the sales leadership role, before eventually, just decide, hey, it was a good run. 7 years nowadays is, especially for someone my age, is an eternity with one company. And it was a lot. And but it was, I just started looking at, hey, I need to start looking for the next thing. It was, I not pigeonhole myself, but I was kind of restricted myself on, my wife and I wanted to stay in Dallas. So we had a really, really strong president in place. And so I knew that wasn't something that was going to happen for me. If I wanted to move up, I had to move out, and just wasn't something I wanted to do. And so that's when I, towards the end, I just started looking, wanted to try and find, a private company. Obviously with a public company, there was, significant restrictions in place, especially financially. So I wanted to go to something that I thought had more, financial upside and flexibility, and find something that I could really sink my teeth into. But yeah, that first company was phenomenal. I'm really fortunate to be able to work there.
So something we talk about on this podcast is finding a leader or being a leader. Did you find someone at that company that you were able to kind of learn from that maybe wasn't like a boss, or was it your boss that was teaching you the skills and the ropes on how to keep moving up within the company?
Yeah, it was a really interesting company with a really interesting makeup. Of, just gotten a new leadership team in place, and it was that was going to take the company in a complete polar opposite direction, which is a really unique time to start at a company that's going through such a drastic transformation. There wasn't. I had one of our regional vice president that oversaw our operating company was just one of those guys that just cared, that cared a lot. And not only did he just, it was one of those that the first time I met him, he said, hey, stay in touch. And, I remember the next time I saw him saying, I haven't heard from you. Of course I'm here thinking I just started, relatively new with the company, thinking, I'm sure he says that to everybody, and I'm not going to bother him with, with any of my, checking in or taking up his time. He's busy. But it was when, that second time when he said, you didn't reach out to me, and why not, that I realized, okay, wow, this guy really does care. And, from that point on, he was somebody that, I always kept in touch with, checked in, but it was just, he was in charge of the leadership development programs and things like that. And just seeing somebody that cares that much about the people that are there and investing, wants to invest their time in people, it was something that it's honestly, it's been a weakness of mine, is networking. You mentioned that college was great for you in networking. Honestly, I was very bad at it because I just naturally kind of got this, this feeling of like, I'm not going to bother them with that. Like that, I'm not going to assume that they want to hear from me or check in with me. So that was, it was something that I kind of saw and was able to recognize my own weakness there. And he was able to really, just be an incredible leader. And he was one of those that, he didn't seek the spotlight. He had no interest in being in the spotlight, or, everyone knowing that, he was in the position that he was. He was a quiet leader that would listen to you and really cared. And so he was definitely one. And in the last 3 or 4 years at the company, we got a new president in place that was, again, the same kind of thing. Like, he wasn't the rah-rah, look at me, flashy kind of guy. He was first one in, last one to leave. And I'm not that kind of person by nature. Like, I don't believe that, hours for the sake of hours matters. But he was the kind of guy that you saw, like, no, it wasn't that. It wasn't that he just wanted people there. It was it was important to him that everybody saw that he's not asking them to do anything that he's not willing to do, right? Which is, it's just such an incredibly powerful thing, because, and especially with the workforce of today, like, people don't want to work long hours, right? They don't want to work, on weekends or something. But seeing him in that position, going out and loading a truck and going out on calls, doing all those things was something really valuable. So yeah, so I had 2 really, really strong examples that I was fortunate to have.
I think you hit it perfectly. With the leader is not going to get into the spotlight. They kind of want to be in the background, kind of hidden, and then they don't realize that they're doing what they thinking they're doing. And I've had those leaders where they don't have the title at all, but they kind of know that they're kind of being that influence. And with my company that I'm in, it's kind of like they have to pave the way for the new future. Everyone's been doing it the same way. So when someone younger comes in, and I'm one of the youngest, it's kind of like we're the new generation. We're going to be bringing in new techniques that maybe weren't happening in 1980 or 1990, because things are changing in every single day. And one of the things with networking is, I think a lot of people are afraid to do it because, like you said, they don't want to bother someone. But it's kind of getting out of your comfort zone in a way. When I send a LinkedIn connection, I want to just build something possibly. If it maybe doesn't go there, it's a way that I can see what that person's doing. Maybe if we don't communicate, but they can see what I'm doing. So it's kind of like maybe there's something that can spark interest in a way. And I kind of use it as I'm not a salesperson. Like I hate when people just come to my door and knock and then they're like, hey, do you want to buy this? It's like, nope, I'm going to slam the door right on you because it's like build that connection. And that's what LinkedIn has taught me is you're just building relationships any way possible with people all over the country. And it's a great way. And doing these kind of interviews, it's like you get to learn from people. That's what I love doing is learning from their stories. And each interview, I gain something new about me that I didn't know.
Yeah. And, you mentioned something that I think is really important. Again, I was in a company that was largely much older, right? It wasn't, a cycle of, new people coming in out of college every year. And, what you said, I thought is something that's so important and that what I want, kids graduating college and younger people, and really everybody, but especially younger people, is to know that, you can be a leader in your company, from the beginning, but know what your company needs. And don't leadership isn't always just being the rah guy, right? Or being the loudest or anything like that. It's like, just show up, do your work, and be somebody that people can count on, because that's a tremendous method of leadership. And it's, something that's always been important to me is being able to look and see, okay, where are we lacking, right? Is this a situation where, hey, we just need somebody to just, like, it was something that I started out doing was, again, like I said, I'm not a believer really in hours for the sake of hours, but I looked at the company, I looked at the kind of people that were there, and I said, okay, for me to be as effective as possible as a 22-year-old, 23-year-old starting in this business that everybody knows, they'll forget more than I know about the business. It was important for me to get there early and to show everybody that, okay, hey, he's not just some typical millennial that wants to show up at 9 and leave at 3. So I was in there at 5:30, 6 in the morning. I didn't have to be, but it was just important for me to do. And you've got to be able to, and it kind of just helped me build up kind of that equity with people that, I wasn't just coming in and being lazy and just thinking I knew everything. It was, so I want people to understand, all the different ways that you can be a leader and be an asset to the company, because being an asset to the company is leadership in its simplest form.
People will notice things even if you don't even realize it. And that's
exactly.
Like, people appreciate your work when you're like, oh, I'm just doing my job. But it's kind of that sense of accomplishment in a way that kind of can boost your morale and get you going and want you to see what else can you do? Can you push yourself in a way?
Absolutely.
You got to the end of your time at the position that you, or the company you were at. What were you trying to do next? So what was that next transition for you?
Yeah. So I knew that whatever I was going to do next, it needed to check the boxes of what I really wanted to do, because I was happy where I was. I had a great boss, great relationship. So it was good. And you only want to leave good for great or excellent. And so I said, okay, I want it to be a private company, preferably, a growing company that was, dynamic and able to, to change on a dime and be something that I could grow and help, be a part of for a long period of time. And obviously I was looking for that financial upside. And so if it's an opportunity where I can get an equity piece or something like that. So those were the things that I was looking for. Yeah, preferably in a somewhat tangentially involved in the business that I was already in. So it wasn't a complete start over, but I was luckily able to find that. And if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and into the story of how that kind of turned out. And part of the reason that I think I'm on here is it's probably not a unique story in this age, but still one that I think is important for people to hear. So wound up finding that exact company that checked all those boxes. It was a new, relative startup company. It was a dynamic company with a great product, a great team in place that, was going through their Series A fundraising round, was ready to just really, throw the gasoline on the fire and explode. And compensation was good. It was what I wanted. Everything was there. And I was so excited. So I put my notice in, which is always tough with somebody, especially a boss that you respect and have a great relationship with. But he was great about it. To look, I totally understand. It's it was an opportunity that was absolutely perfect. So I put my 2 weeks notice in, and then that last day I did my rounds, said my goodbyes, came home, and I got a nice bottle of champagne to celebrate with my wife, closing that chapter. And as we just put our daughter down, and on the way down, I checked my phone and had a missed call from a number that I didn't have saved in my phone. And so I called the number back, and it wound up being the CEO of the company that I was getting ready to join. And I think it was on a Wednesday, and I was supposed to start on Monday. And so I get the call, and he just says, "Hey, I don't really know how to tell you this, and I can't believe that I have to do this, but we had several investors drop out, and we're going to have to rescind the offer." And it was, these are good guys. And part of the reason that I wanted to join this company was everybody that I met at that company was phenomenal. High character, everything that they believed in was what I believed in. And, here it was really, man, it was gut wrenching, because I just put down, I think at the time, my baby was a little over 3 months old, maybe 4 months old. And I just walked away from a great job with a great salary that we just moved into a new house a couple months prior to that. And going from that to, that period, and just pure elation of like, I'm done. I get a few days to enjoy myself before I get to start, attacking this new position with this new company. And remember too, 7 years I had been with one company. And so I wasn't used to this, right? I wasn't used to, starting a new company or leaving a company or anything like that. So it was something that's totally new to me. And so, just the total just roller coaster of emotions that happened, because that day, the company that I left announced a complete hiring freeze. And they weren't going to be, as soon as, that happened, and as soon as I got off the phone, I realized, like, there's no way I'm going to be able to go back. And it's funny because my boss and this was probably March, I think it was mid-March. So it was right as, like, I want to say maybe that night or something, or a couple days before, was that Rudy Gobert issue in the NBA shut down, which is kind of like the time where everybody said, like, all right, this is something. So my boss had my old boss had even said, like, hey, just so you know, like, are you going to be okay? Like, you can stay here, right? We can figure it out. I was like, no, I'm good. I appreciate it, but they said that we're fine, so I want to, I'm going to move forward. And so it went from in about 5 minutes to elation and excitement to just a punch in the gut to kind of panic mode of, like, all right, 3-month-old, my wife has her own business. How are we going to make this work? What are we going to do? And so that was how I found the company. That was how I left and was supposed to start, and then led me to not starting.
It's one of the things like that with this show. Everyone has a story, and even if it's not written out, but you get to kind of learn from the person just by talking to them. And with your story, with how you hit that fall, we kind of talked earlier that we all had to go through that downward spiral in a way, because nothing's perfect and we all have to learn. And about what you're going to probably talk about, it kind of put I was going to go for a car reference, but it was probably a bad idea. It kind of put the pedal to the metal. I don't even know what the pedal to the metal or something like that. And it kind of made you start thinking, like, I have to start figuring out something, because the biggest thing in your life right now is your family. And family is important. You want to make sure that you have a financial safety at that time. So during that mindset, or during that time that you were in between the jobs, because the following one didn't work out, what was going to your mind? Were you starting to come up with new ideas, like, what direction do I want to go in? Or I kind of just need to take the time off and then figure it out once
Yeah. So the first thing that I did really, and it was almost after that. Yeah, there's no way to avoid having that gut wrenching feeling, but right after that, I was fortunate to go through a course with a couple mentors of mine that it's called the Relentless Solution Focus, and it's something that always they kind of designed it for sales training, but it's something that's just it's so applicable to life in general. But basically, the framework of it is when a problem happens or a situation happens that's not good, what is one thing that you can do to improve the situation? It doesn't have to be a home run. It doesn't have to be the answer, but what's one thing that we can do right now to improve the situation and go from bad to a little bit better? So, pretty quickly after I got off that call, it was, I didn't have a pity party. Obviously, it sucked. There's no other way to say it. But at the end of the day, I chose to make the decision to take the risk and leave and start a new job with a new company. And that's something that, to me, I'm such a strong believer that we all have agency. And I think it's very dangerous when we kind of lose that agency and feel like we don't have control over what happens. Even something like this. Obviously, hey, this was something that nobody saw coming. But at the end of the day, I chose to leave, and I'm the one that set the wheels in motion to wind up unemployed. Obviously, this was something that, there was nothing else that I could do, but I still chose to make the decision. And being able to attack things with that mindset allows you to take that next step towards improving the situation, because you're not just in that, like, well, now I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I had this happen to me, and, well, I guess there's nothing I can do. I just think that's so dangerous, and it's something I tell myself every day. Like, I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to let myself get in that headspace. So immediately I just started thinking, all right, hey, I did this to myself. I'm going to get myself back up. Because I looked at it and it's like, all right, if this happened, there's not going to be any good jobs come up for, at that time I was a little naive. I thought like 3 months. I mean, I thought we'd be out of the woods by then. So I was like, all right, well, 3 months, I'm not going to be able to get anything. So I might as well, come up with plan B and plan C. So, and that's what led me to starting the travel agency. A lot of people probably listen to this and say, in this environment, you thought the right idea was starting a travel agency. Again, that's not the home run, but hey, it's one thing that I can do right now. I've got time on my hands. There's relatively low cost of entry to start that. And it's something that I had wanted to do and should have done, years ago. I always help people plan trips. My mom was actually a travel agent, so I kind of had that in my blood, but it was always something I loved doing. And I left, I lost out on a lot of money because I would just help people because it was just a hobby of mine. So it was something that's like, all right, well, I have no more excuses left, because I was always busy, which I wasn't too busy to do that. It was laziness. And so I'm kind of speaking to hopefully the people listening to this too, is like, first of all, hey, don't put that off, whatever that project is that you think you should start, because you never know when another pandemic's going to hit and you're going to wind up needing to go after that. And it would have been a lot better if I had, started this 4 years ago and been able to have, a bigger clientele to go after. But, it's okay. Here's something I can do. I can do it relatively quickly, and it's something I love doing. And then, I also kind of thought, like, man, this sure sounds like what that story, that I would tell 10 years from now to, a group of students or a group of people, or on a podcast, and say, like, man, I wound up lost my job. I felt like, emotionally rock bottom, and 3-month-old and how I'm going to figure this out. And it just kind of sounded like that story. So I was like, hey, you know what? Screw it. There's no better time than now. Yeah. And so that's when I decided, I might as well do this. And obviously during this situation, it's not an explosive time for travel, but I've been able to carve out a really good niche. And most importantly, I got started. So if even it's a little bit now, but it's the start that I needed to be able to get to where I wanted to go.
Comparing to how you kind of quit or you left your job and then you went through that situation, it kind of goes with, I'm not saying I went through something similar, but during this pandemic, I was actually on furlough. When I got the news, it kind of hit me hard because I'm a young person and I'm like, okay, I had this safety job, not safety job, but
Yeah.
like financially safety, and now it's like cut off. And I kind of, for that first night, I was like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. But then the next morning, I just started brainstorming ideas like, what's gonna keep me busy for the next few months, or how long? Because I did not know how. Like we all thought maybe this wasn't gonna last long, but it's still going on now. But I knew I needed to do something to keep me focused, keep me going, be passionate about something. And I had this podcast, or even just doing a podcast many years ago. Like I wanted to do it, but it was like the timing wasn't right. Well, perfect timing now because I have nothing to do every day. I get up, I was just sitting on the couch watching TV. But then it's like finding that meaning to it. Like you said, travel agency and being a travel agent, you kind of helped people before, so you had that passion in you. But now you're able to bring it to the forefront and be able to do it. And I think from your passion, seeing what you do, and for me, we kind of are similar in a way. We're passionate about what we're doing. We enjoy what we're doing. And
Absolutely.
like you said, people, I mean, we see on the news all the time, people are traveling somehow. Like,
Oh yeah.
people are flying to places. I'm like, okay, do I need to get a booking somewhere? Because I got some vacation I can kill.
Yeah.
I don't trust people. So,
Yeah. No, it's been, the timing has been weird. I people say, I feel, a lot of people will say, man, picked it's got to be a tough time to start that. And it actually was a good time, not a good time, but not a bad time. If it was something that, because I look at it, maybe if I had started a few years ago, maybe it's something I would have been doing full time. And then when it went to zero, a lot of people were really, really bad shape. So I kind of missed that whole window, right? But by the time I was, ready to go and had learned what I needed to learn and got the business off the ground, by that time, people were kind of ready and that kind of pent up demand was there. So I was able to miss out on a lot of that bad time. And it's been, obviously it had been gangbusters. It's not like, it's not like checking your, every 2 weeks, checking your bank account and seeing the paycheck hit. But it's been great. It's been very rewarding for me, laying the groundwork for the financial upside. But I got to be home every single day with my baby as she grew from 3 months to she's now a little over 8 months. And that's something that you can always make the money up or at least get close to it. I never would have been able to get that back. Just seeing her yesterday start, today actually sit up and on her own kind of push herself up. Like I would never have seen that. And, get to wake her up every single morning. It's just, again, it's like I said earlier, it's just all about perspective and how you're choosing to look at things, because we all have the choice of how we're going to view things. We have a choice in how we're going to react and what we're going to pull from every experience. So it was a very bad situation that just making the best out of and choosing to pull the positives out from.
Would you say during this time you're able to kind of, like you said, laid the groundwork for the company? Are you able to try different strategies, come up with like what you'll eventually do marketing wise when everything is getting kind of back to normal?
Yeah, it's been a really great time because it hasn't been, I've had a lot of people say like, hey, definitely want to, when things are over or when we get back to normal, I definitely want to book something. And so it was good that it wasn't immediately that I had all of these people looking for something, right? That's always kind of a really tough position to be in. It's a great position to be in if you've got a lot of interest, but it's a tough position to be in when you're not totally positive you can execute on all of that. And so the kind of the avenues that I want to go after and the kind of trips that I want to be putting together for people are not ones that are just kind of haphazard, like, people just, a couple things got messed up. I want everything to be perfect. So it was better for me to be able to kind of learn and grow a little bit with, a few trips here and there so that I had time to properly explore everything the way that I needed to and be able to learn what works and what doesn't work. And it was also, it's been really interesting because I've been able to see where is this business potentially vulnerable down the road? Now, obviously, another pandemic where nobody's allowed to travel, sure. But there's little things within that instead of just looking at like, well, because I also easily could have just said like, yeah, I love travel. I wish I could, own my own travel agency, but hey, another pandemic could hit again and, it could just go to zero. But instead I looked at it as like, all right, so if I do this, I'm going to do this. Where are some vulnerabilities that I can learn from this and take away and try and prevent that from impacting my business, and prevent it from going to zero down the road. So I've been able to look at things like cruises and a lot of agencies that were very heavily dependent on that and say, okay, now I know my business can't get skewed too heavily towards this one thing. Mm-hmm. So being able to kind of be well-rounded and figuring out, okay, I need to know, you obviously want to focus and have your specialty, but it's my father-in-law who passed away in November was just an incredibly brilliant man and just had all of these sayings that just stay with us every single day. And he told my wife when she started her business just out of college, said, have a narrow product with a wide audience. And so that's something that I really want to focus in on. Hey, it's luxury travel, but how is it luxury travel that appeals to everybody? And figuring out how to kind of avoid those weaknesses. So it's been an interesting time. It's been a really good time to learn and develop. And like I said, it's been busier actually than I expected it to be. So, if you were to ask me to now versus when I started, are you happy with where you've been? Are you happy with how far you've come? I definitely think it's exceeded my expectations.
What are some challenges you found about yourself being a CEO, and what has been the best thing that you've learned about yourself as being a CEO of a company?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, it's totally different going from office environment to working from home. It's something that you always, it's a grass is always greener kind of thing. Because when I'm sitting there in the office, I'm just thinking like, man, this is so like we don't need. And I had more flexibility than most in an office environment has. But man, you really are. The buck really does stop with you. It's just such a different. A different position to be in where you could say, when you work for a company with, especially the company that was like mine, if I had a bad day or maybe I didn't have it that day, it didn't really impact things too much versus now, as I go, so goes the company. and so I can't wait. Any day that I waste is money directly out of my pocket that I'm not able to earn. And I'm not able to go and make those experiences and make those connections and do all of those things that I have to do as the owner of the company. It's been a huge adjustment there. And it's been, like I said, I'm so fortunate I get to, be with my daughter every single day, be with my wife every single day. But man, it's tough being able to say, hey, I need an hour. I need 2 hours. I really got to put the headphones in. I got to grind it out. And so it's tough juggling all of these things that, not only building a new company, but in a completely different environment than I've ever been in before. So it's definitely a challenge. It's something that, it's something that I believe I'm a big supporter of change things up all the time. Just change just for a new experience. And, may create a new synapse in your brain, something, just change. So it's been very challenging, but it's been very rewarding as well.
Are you the only person in your company, or do you have like team members also?
Yeah. So I've got, I'm the only full-time, technical employee for my company, but we've got sub-agents, we've got partners as well that we use and to help create experiences and things like that. So that's also a tough kind of thing, having to build a business that still relies on other people to execute. It's not like I'm not, like you mentioned at the beginning, planning events and things like that. I rely very heavily on people that I don't know, don't see, and don't have anything really, any way to check them. So I I put a trip together for somebody and I do the best that I possibly can, but man, something could happen on the flight or at the hotel or something like that. So it's a very unique situation that, it's something I've been able to to learn and really work on is, okay, how do I minimize any of those friction points? How do I limit? Now you get better every single time you do it. But it's tough being, having to rely on people that, again, you don't really have much contact with at all. But being able to develop those relationships and partnerships. And then again, the future plan, obviously, as we continue to grow, is bringing on more agents under our umbrella in different areas that have different specialties, and just continuing to grow however we can.
So we talked about being a leader in a way. So how are you able to be a leader for those people that you don't have contact with all the time, or they're not completely full-time under the umbrella?
Yeah. It goes back to what I said earlier. It's making sure that you have thorough knowledge of what you're talking about. Because I can say that I'm representing somebody all day long, whether it be a high net worth individual, or, hey, I've got these clients that are, extremely picky, or something like that. But if you're not able to, there's a certain level of detail that you have to be able to speak to for them to take you seriously, to be able to, because if you do have clients like that, right. And it's no different in this business versus your business or anybody else's. If you can't articulate what it is that you're trying to get across about that client, then they're not going to take you seriously. And as soon as they don't take you seriously, they're either not going to come to you wanting to get more of your business. They're not going to treat your clients the way that you want them treated. And again, it goes back to, respect, knowledge, and being willing to do the homework that you have to do to be able to get, at and above the level that, some of these companies expect you to be at.
Are you always learning more and more about the industry so you can become better? So maybe if you get a client that wants a certain thing that you maybe not have expert at, that you're able to accommodate for them?
Yeah. So something that's always stuck with me is one of the most valuable things that you can do is say, I don't know, but let me check, instead of just answering something because you feel like, because there's a lot of pressure to, with whoever you're talking to feel like you've got to have the answer at, just the drop of the hat when they ask you. Now, some people probably do, but there's only so much that one person conceivably can do. So I've really tried to focus on feeling comfortable saying, I'm not positive. Let me check that. I'll get right back to you. And, something that I've always tried to do is, if I don't know the answer, I dang well better make sure that I know who does, and being able to get that information quickly. Because ultimately, if somebody asks you a question, generally they don't need the answer now, but not 10 minutes from now or 20 minutes from now. Usually there's not that level of urgency for it. So making sure that I continue to grow my network and like we talked about earlier with networking, is it's crucially important in this industry to be able to know that, hey, I've got, for, Bora Bora, I've got this person I know I can go to if I'm not an expert in it, or, Tokyo or wherever it is. So it's been really important. And it's something I've really tried to focus on, is making sure that I'm developing my network in a way to where I may not have the answer immediately, but I'm able to get the answer within, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to help somebody out.
Are you saying you're an expert at Bora Bora now? Because I need to go there right now.
So. Man, it's where I went on my honeymoon. And so I do consider myself somewhat of an expert on there. Although it's kind of easy with Bora Bora, because when you get to your resort, you pretty much just stay there. So really there's not a whole lot of things to really worry about. But yes, absolutely. Bora Bora, I can give you all the ins and outs.
I have to picture myself being in one of those rooms over the water where you can just jump off.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's going to be my future. I'm hopefully in a year or two, when we can all travel normally, I'm going to be there quickly.
So it's interesting, because I get that a lot of times from people, and it's something that, again, having this time has been able to kind of figure out how I can grow and differentiate myself versus other agencies. And so one thing that I've really focused on, that I've been able to bring a lot of help to people and value to people, is focusing on points and miles. So most travel agencies, they only want to help you if you're paying with cash, because travel agents, we get commission from suppliers, which is a great setup. It doesn't cost customers, our clients, anything. It's awesome. But there is a huge amount of people, and this was really what my first passion was, a huge amount of people that, they swipe their credit card every day. All their bills are on their credit card. They earn all these points, or they earn all these hotel points, credit card points, frequent flyer miles, but they really don't know how to use them. Or if they use them, they use them how the credit card companies want you to use them, which is to redeem them for the lowest value. So another service that I offer that is a fee-based service, depending on the itinerary, is helping people leverage their points, leverage their miles to be able to get the best possible return on them. So how do we get you, for you, if you said, hey, I've got all these points of miles, I want to go to Bora Bora, how the heck do I do that? I'd figure out a way to help you, get you there. And, it winds up saving thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for people. And it's how I personally have been able to go on incredible trips, because I didn't have the budget that millionaires and billionaires have, but I sure as heck want to go the same way that they do. So, I was able to figure out, going to the Middle East, to Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Tokyo in first class for basically $0, using these. So it's another service that I feel like I'm able to offer that can really, really help people. So any of your listeners, if you've got a bunch of points, or you're just not sure if you have enough, maybe you do, maybe you don't, they could just reach out to me, aj@peakluxurytravel.com. Or go through the website, and we'll be able to help you, free consultation, figure out if we can help you.
I think you definitely did a great job with kind of differentiating yourself from other travel agencies and seeing what have they not been doing. And I haven't really been hearing many places that have been doing that, because I have miles, but I know I would have to spend it on the airlines, but it's already, okay, you're just going to take all my points now. So after one trip, it's like, how far can I get with that amount? So
you can get further than you think.
Now I'm going to start planning my next trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what does the future look like for you professionally and personally? What are some things you want to accomplish?
Yeah, professionally, I think anybody that starts a business in the near future, you want to get to a point where you're making a comfortable living. That's kind of the first goal. I feel, it's my first goal is, okay, how can I get close enough to, what's the point where I am comfortable replacing the income that I lost? Mm-hmm. And, ultimately, is it something that's, obviously nobody knows when you start a business if it's going to work or not. The best idea in the world. I had the company I was supposed to go work for. It was one of the best ideas I've heard. It was phenomenal, but it may not make it through, right? You don't know. But, am I growing the business in a way that's going to get me where I need to go by the time I want to get there? So that's something that, my first goal is, hey, let's make this successful. Let's make this something that can provide and be a comfortable living. And not just something that's kind of open the floodgates for, is not just stopping with this. It's, okay, what else can I do, right? What else? So looking at different businesses, we've got, I'm going to be, starting up a real estate investment career as well. And my wife and I are going to be starting a podcast as well. So it's all those little things that I was trapped in this box of, nope, I have my job. This is what I do. And I don't have time for anything else. Again, to all your listeners, that's BS. You do have time, make time. And so getting all of these projects off the ground that I've been wanting to do for such a long time is definitely a goal. And then personally, I'm so blessed and fortunate to have a great wife. We've been married for a little over 3 years now. We've got a beautiful baby. Just want to continue to celebrate every day and continue to get better every day, professionally, personally, as a dad, as a husband, as a friend, all these kinds of things. And to just keep stretching myself and keep testing myself to see what, not only what I can achieve, but what we can achieve as a family and all these kinds of things. So it's, it sounds corny, but just want to get better every day. That's the goal.
I always live by the quote, become the greatest version of myself. And each day,
yeah, love it.
I always want to learn something new. And as a fellow podcaster, that's something I am so for someone getting on the journey like I did, because it's been the best experience ever. Each interview I do, I enjoy it. Some people may think, well, you're going to burn out. And I go, no. When I'm able to talk to someone that I've never met across the country, across the world, it's the best hour, 2 hours of my time because you learn so much about the different journeys that I love sharing. I don't know if you're able to reveal it, but what is the theme of your podcast that you and your wife are starting?
Yeah, so I didn't want to throw it out and an unwelcomed plug, but it's gonna be it's gonna be called the Peak Perfect Podcast. It's blending my company, Peak Luxury Travel, and her business, Perfect 8 Counts, which is an online cheer dance choreography business that's both virtual and in person, and workshops as well. So we, again, just kind of in the same spirit of what we've talked about, we wound up here. All right, we're together every day. We've got time. We just thought, like, what can we do together? Like, what is not out there that we think we can bring to people? And we've got this incredible network of people, of friends and family members and people we've done business with that have an incredible story to tell, similar to what drove you to start Rise of the Challenge. But we're really going to focus on having the real honest conversations, right? We're not going to have the Instagram version of this conversation. We were very inspired by our own. The first couple months with our baby was really tough. And we kept saying to ourselves, man, it would have been really nice if somebody said, hey, the first 3 months are going to suck. You just deal with it. It's going to get better and you'll figure it out. But so we've got, we wanted to draw on these experiences that these people that are close to us have had of, getting married during a pandemic, having to postpone your wedding during a pandemic, building a business, and all of these things that, we're in a setting much like you and I are doing now, of just, hey, how would you talk if you just had your friends over and had a glass of wine, or just, shooting the breeze. And so that's kind of the theme of the podcast. And we're really going to focus it around, family and entrepreneurship and the same kind of things of how people that have had to juggle multiple things, and talking through the real story of how those experiences are for people like you and me that aren't, we're not Elon Musk, right? We're not, some just incredibly, gifted person that was going to be able to do it no matter what. Or people that had, all the money in the world to be able to handle all these things. So it's going to be centered around conversations like that. And, we're just gonna have some fun with it. Like, much like you've said, and we'll definitely want to have you on to tell your story as well. But, just figure out how to pull a little bit here and there from people that we talk to, and help those people share their stories. So I appreciate you letting me get that plug in.
Oh, no problem. I mean, it's part of your future and something, and that's what a lot of people. I'm a person. You can plug. I mean, because this is your story and what your future is. I mean, if I had something going on, I would be plugging it too. But I don't have anything going on, so. I'm excited to see how it goes for you, because definitely the things that you talk about, the theme and the message is, it hits a lot of people. A lot of people are going through similar situations when they have a 3-month-old or going through those 3 months. People can relate. And that's the key with podcasting. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but you kind of have to hit what theme or market you want to go for. And like you said, you have a narrow pitch with a wide audience. So you're kind of honing on an idea, but so many people out there across the world. So I'm excited for you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that.
In the industry that you're in, what tips or advice would you give someone that maybe wants to go into that travel agency or real estate industry to accomplish their goals in there?
Yeah. So travel, especially, I mean, it's tough, but it really helps having a network that you can draw on. That if you look around and say, I don't really have any friends that travel, I don't really have any family that travel, it's going to be tough. Obviously it's not impossible, but it's going to be tough. So yeah, one of those things that I always think about and kind of what led me to this was does it make sense? Mm-hmm. And this was something that made sense to me because I've already helped people with this. I've already, people know that this is something that I know about, right? I don't have to educate my clients and my network on my credentials on this, because I've helped a lot of them already. And, they've seen to the points of Miles' piece, they've seen what I've been able to do there, so they know that I know what I'm talking about there. So I would say to anybody thinking about getting in, even before you start laying the foundation for what your credentials are. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask your friends and family, like, hey, would you use a travel agent, right? And one thing that I wish I had done earlier was, and I didn't have a whole lot of ramp up time before I got started because I just had to, but educating your network and your clients on understanding, hey, most of the time there's no charge for using a travel agent. So it's a win-win for everybody. A lot of people think they have to pay the travel agent to do their booking, and certain things, everybody's a little bit different. So I won't speak for anybody else, but start laying that foundation of what your credentials are. Make sure you have the experience that you can draw on, because that really helps to be able to start with some sort of specialty. I'm able to draw on my own travel experiences to be able to speak to certain areas of the world and certain places that I've stayed that I feel comfortable sending people, because I've already stayed there. I know where they are. I know how they are. And I can feel confident that that first trip with somebody, or at least the first quote that I send or the first option that I send, is something that I believe in and I know firsthand. So start laying that foundation before you even decide to get started, if it's something you're thinking about. And I guess that really probably stands for any business. It's all this is the same advice. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. Work hard, do your research, draw out your plan, and figure out what your unique value proposition is going to be to your clients, because pretty much no matter what business you're starting, there's 1,000 of them already out there. There's 1,000 of them that have failed. There's 1,000 of them that are going to fail, and figure out why you're going to be the one that doesn't.
I think if people are listening to all my interviews and hearing similar stories, it's kind of saying that you try it. Like,
yeah,
you may need to try this out, because every single person has had that experience where they had to kind of prep themselves to get there. And I think for me, college was that opportunity to find my passion in different areas. Like, never thought I'd be event planning, charity planning, and all that. And so with my job now, I'm able to do those events and stuff and kind of show people this is what my passion was, and I'm still able to do it nowadays. So definitely great advice is plan it out and everything.
Yep.
The final question I'll ask you is, from your journey and your experience, for someone that's listening to this interview, what tips or advice would you give them to rise to their challenge, to overcome obstacles and accomplish their goals?
My number one piece of advice for everybody in anything, whether it be business, whether it be personal, anything, is own your life. You are in control of it. Don't ever let anybody tell you that something just happened to you and there's there's nothing you could do. There's no, you've got all the excuses in the world. Don't let that happen. We all have agency. We're all in control of our lives. It may not feel like it when something big happens, but start to train yourself to be able to identify where you played a part in whatever it was that happened. Because when you're able to do that, you're able to react a lot quicker. You're able to get yourself into a better position quicker, because you're fighting against yourself. And it takes time. It's definitely not something that's easy to do. I wasn't born this way. I had to train myself to really focus every single day on figuring out how I was in control of whatever happened to me. Because there's always going to be things that happen, but you've got to put yourself in the best possible position to succeed. And I say that with personal, professional, friends, everything. You're in control. You make the decisions in your life, and don't let anybody say that they've got control on your life.
Like, now I'm going to try another quote. It's kind of like with your travel agency. You're the pilot, and you're going to go on whatever destination you want to, and don't let someone stop you. Don't let a guest stop you to go way. And I think that's a great advice to give someone, because I think people are nervous, like they need someone to tell them what to do. I think you have that confidence to say, I want to go there. How are you going to do it? Start playing out and everything.
Absolutely.
AJ, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us your rise to the challenge. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm excited to see what the future looks like for you and what you're going to be accomplishing.
Thanks a lot, Alex. I appreciate it. Had a blast, and looking forward to talking to you in the future.